Today's story is about the Babemba tribe in South Africa. They have an elementary code of conduct, I guess you could say. And they have a very interesting way of handling delinquent behaviors, and a visitor once to the tribe recorded what they do when someone is unkind or someone is delinquent or someone does something that goes against this tribal code of kindness and cooperation. And because it is such a small community, they are able to do something like this. And I almost kind of wish that we did something like this, because I think the world would be a very different place. But when someone exhibits a delinquent behavior or an unkindness, that person, male or female, is brought to the middle of the village and stands there alone, unfettered. All work ceases, and the entire village gathers around this person. And one by one, people of all ages begin to tell this person every good thing they had done in his or her lifetime. Every incident, every experience, every kindness, every strength is spoken out loud to this person. Every single thing they've done in their lifetime. They are not allowed to exaggerate, fabricate, or be facetious as they're telling this person all the good things that they had done during their lifetime. All kindness, all strengths are spoken out loud to this person. Sometimes this celebration, or whatever you want to call this ritual that they do, will last for days, because they'll keep on doing it until every story has been spoken, no matter how long it takes. And then when they feel that they have exhausted everything that this person, every good deed that this person has done in their lifetime, they have this big, huge, joyous celebration. And they literally and figuratively welcome this person back into the tribe. Now imagine what that would be like for us. If every time we did something unkind, our family, or our spiritual family, or our real family, our biological family would get together, put us in the middle of a circle, and tell us every kindness, every good deed, every strength we have. Imagine how different life would be for everyone. And this ritual is very rarely needed in this tribe, because there's hardly any delinquent behavior. Today I want to talk about principle 2, Unity's principle, the second principle that Unity, it makes up part of Unity's belief system, and that is that human beings have a spark of divinity within them. Their very essence, or our very essence, is of God, and therefore we are inherently good. Now, Christians did not always believe that we were inherently good. Many of us have heard of and know about original sin and the fall of Adam and Eve. And I went and looked at different Christian churches and different faith systems in the world to see if they have original sin or not. Of course, Catholics have original sin. Human nature is weakened in its power, subject to ignorance, suffering, and the domination of death because of this original sin, and because of the fall of Adam, we are destined to suffer for the rest of our lives. In Anglicanism, they say man by nature is capable of communion with God, but only through such communication can he become what he was created to be. Original sin stands for the fact that from a time apparently prior to any responsible act of choice, man is lacking in this communion. The Methodists say they don't have original sin, but they say nothing is sin but a willful transgression of a known commandment of God. Jehovah's Witnesses say all people are born sinners because of inheriting sin, corruption, and death from Adam. Mormons believe that men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgressions. In Islam, Muslims believe that Adam and Eve were forgiven by God. And original sin is not recognized in Islamic religion. In Buddhism, there's no concept of sin at all. In Hinduism, there's no original sin, but sin is believed to be a wrongful act or a negative consequence resulting from a wrongful act. Sounds more like karma. In the Native American tradition, the concept of sin under a single God does not exist. The Native Americans' sin is regarded as irresponsibility to their community. And in Judaism, there is no original sin, but any violation of the Ten Commandments or the Divine Commandments are interpreted as a sin. I also find it very interesting that when we put out the willingness to grow spiritually, what we need to read or what we need to experience is always given to us. This has happened to me more than once, and it's never happened in a public library, but it has happened if I go to a metaphysical bookstore. I'm looking through the shelves and the book falls off the shelf on the floor, and I don't think anything of it. So I go to another section, and then I come back and I'm in that section again, and the same book falls on the floor. That's a sign to me that I need to read that book, and these kinds of things happen. Many, many years ago, when I was first exploring, kind of left the Catholic Church and was exploring spirituality, and I was actually going through this almost like born-again Christian experience, I came upon two books. One is called Original Blessing, and it's written by Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox used to be a priest, a Catholic priest. First he was silenced by the Pope, and that didn't work. And then he was excommunicated by the Pope. So now he's an Episcopalian priest. But what this book, Original Blessing, talks about is if you go back and search through Scripture, you're going to find out that before even Adam and Eve, that really what we are is good. There really is no original sin, that we're really good. And he wrote another book that I read many, many years ago too, called The Coming, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ. And that was like a big, huge eye-opener too, because I was believing some of the things that Unity taught even before I was introduced to Unity, because it just totally changed my thinking. Coming of the Cosmic Christ and Original Blessings. In the Council of Nicaea in 325, a bunch of men sat down and decided what the uniform Christian doctrine was going to be. So they sat down and they decided what books were going to be included in Scriptures, what books they were going to throw out. And this concept that Jesus' life is evidence of our human potential was officially rejected at that Council of Nicaea. And then Christianity, we have the Bible as it stands today with some books in it, some books not. The Gospel of Thomas isn't there, the Gospel of Mary isn't there, the Gospel of Peter isn't there. There's lots of writings that were not contained in the Bible. Words were changed to reflect the thinking of the time. But Jesus never wanted to be worshipped. It was not his intention to start a religion. What he really wanted to do was to show us our potential. And there were so many people that at that time, when they met Jesus, that they felt that they had encountered God. And how true is that? It's through the Spirit within us that we know that we're one with God. We don't need someone to intercede for us. We don't need a priest or a rabbi or someone to talk to God for us. As I was growing up Catholic, we were not encouraged to read the Bible because the priest was in charge of interpreting the Bible. We were never encouraged to read the Bible growing up as a Catholic. We had catechism, but we never really opened that book and took a look at it. Our job as human beings is to revive this spiritual truth that God and I are one, that God lives inside of us, that we are divine in nature. The divine presence that dwells within us is there. And where it resides in us is in the soul. There are 4 essential parts of every human being. The first one, it's almost like, do you ever see those stacking Russian dolls? You open it up and there's another, exactly like that in there. You open that one up and I was always fascinated. There's another one. You open that up and there's another one. That's what we are. We are like a part of these, just like the Russian stack 'em dolls. The very tiniest little part of us is the body. It's really a spacesuit that helps us exist on this planet. The second part that's a little bigger than that is the ego. And when the ego's healthy, it helps us, it gives us focus and confidence to live this human life in a healthy form. It's also in its unhealthy form when it's expressing a lot of anger, discontent, resentment, uncooperation, jealousy. Then we're easing God out. That's also part of the ego. But when it's in a healthy state, it helps us function in the world. The next part is the soul. The soul is an eternal, individualized creation that grows, learns, and seeks an ever closer relationship with God. It's the soul. And then we have spirit that's present everywhere and in everything. The same for all of us and always available to us as the essence of who we are. It's also everyone's essence. All the people out there have the same spirit within them. So what would it be like to live from soul consciousness? Let's decide that we want to live from soul consciousness. What we want to do is put the ego in service of the soul. And how we do that is to give up attachment to the dramas of our human existence. You know those dramas, those stories that we tell ourselves about being victims and heroes, celebrities and nobodies. And any event that can make up the lyrics of a country song is an expression of ego. You know what I'm talking about, those country songs. Living from soul consciousness doesn't mean that we avoid all difficulties, because they're part of life. People say, well, why do bad things happen to good people? Because it just is. It's part of the human experience. But we will see and handle them differently. We can integrate this humanness and this spiritual side of us. The point of spiritual growth is to live from the Christ within, making decisions from the higher self. Unity talks about, this isn't exactly an established teaching, but Unity does talk about the pivotal nature of the soul. We can choose, we can decide when we have an experience, do we want to respond from that experience from ego, or do we want to respond from that experience as spirit? We have a choice to do that. If everything is of God, then there is no part of us that is not good. There is no part of us that is bad. There is no original sin. Original sin is a myth, a legend, created in 325 AD, way after Christ was on the earth, way after. When a bunch of men, not you, John, decided that this is how we're going to control people. And I'm sorry to say that is exactly what happened. This is how we're going to control people. We're going to create this religion full of sin so that they feel guilty the rest of their lives. So that they feel they have to suffer to somehow reach God. Deepak Chopra wrote a book called The Third Jesus. And in it he says, I want to offer you the possibility that Jesus was, as he proclaimed, a Savior. Not the Savior, not the one and only Son of God. Rather, Jesus embodied the highest level of enlightenment. He spent his brief adult life describing it, teaching it, and passing it on to future generations. Jesus intended to save the world by showing others the path to God consciousness. Now, as I was looking at, doing some research, I always like to try and find up-to-date information for a talk, for a sharing, for a message. I was looking through the internet and I found this writing by someone, and I thought, this is right on. And it was so profound to me, and this is from a famous musician and dancer. But this is what he has to say. It's strange that God doesn't mind expressing himself or whole self in all the religions of the world, while people still cling to the notion that their way is the only right way. Whatever you try to say about God, someone will take offense, even if you say everyone's love of God is right for them. For me, the form God takes is not the most important thing. What's most important is the essence. My songs and dances are outlines for him to come in and fill. I hold out the form. She puts in the sweetness. I've looked up at the night sky and beheld the stars so intimately close. It was as if my grandmother had made them for me. How rich, how sumptuous, I thought. In that moment I saw God in his creation. I could as easily have seen her in the beauty of a rainbow, the grace of a deer bounding through a meadow, the truth of a father's kiss. But for me, the sweetest contact with God has no form. I close my eyes, look within, and enter a deep, soft silence. The infinity of God's creation embraces me. We are one. That was written by Michael Jackson, the Michael Jackson, in a book that called Dancing the Dream. And then he also, I was like totally amazed. It's like, wow. He also wrote this poem. It's called Heaven is Here. You and I were never separate. It's just an illusion, wrought by the magical lens of perception. There is only one wholeness, only one mind. We are like ripples in the vast ocean of consciousness. Come, let us dance the dance of creation. Let us celebrate the joy of life. The birds, the bees, the infinite galaxies, rivers, mountains, clouds, and valleys are all pulsating pattern, living, breathing, alive with cosmic energy, full of life, of joy, the universe of mind. Don't be afraid to know who you are. You are much more than you've ever imagined. You are the sun, you are the moon, you are the wildflower in bloom. You are the life throb that pulsates, dances from a speck of dust to the most distant star. And you and I, we're never separate. It's just an illusion, wrought by the magical lens of perception. Let us celebrate the joy of life. Let us dance the dance of creation. Curving back within ourselves, we create again and again. Endless cycles come and go, we rejoice in the infinitude of time. There never was a time when I was not, or you were not. There never will be a time when we will cease to be. Infinite, unbounded. In the ocean of consciousness, we are like ripples in a sea of bliss. You and I were never separate. It's just an illusion, wrought by the magical lens of perception. Heaven is here, right now in the moment of eternity. Don't fool yourself. Reclaim your bliss. Once you were lost, but now you're home in a non-local universe. There is nowhere to go from here to here. Is the unbounded ocean of consciousness. We are like ripples in the sea of bliss. Come, let us dance the dance of creation. Let us celebrate the joy of life. And you and I were never separate. It's just an illusion, wrought by the magical lens of perception. Heaven is here, right now, this moment of eternity. Don't fool yourself. Reclaim your bliss. And that's again in a book called Dancing the Dream. He also said, when all life is seen as divine, everyone grows wings. And here's one more thing from Michael Jackson. It's from the book Dancing with a Dream, and it's also in a booklet in his Dangerous album. He says, consciousness expresses itself through creation. The world we live in is the dance of the Creator. Dancers come and go in the twinkling of an eye, but the dance lives on. On many an occasion, when I am dancing, I have felt touched by something sacred. In those moments, I felt my spirit soar and become everything that exists. I become the stars and the moon. I become the lover and the beloved. I become the victor and the vanquished. I become the master and the slave. I become the singer and the song. I become the knower and the unknown. I keep on dancing, then it is the eternal dance of creation. The Creator and creation merge into one wholeness of joy. I keep on dancing and dancing and dancing until there is only the dance. I invite everyone to breathe in a deep breath. And then exhale that breath as slowly as you can. And then take in another deep breath. And just hold it. And let it go slowly. And I invite you to scan your body. And if you notice any tension, give your body permission to release that tension. And I invite you to take a look into your mind. And if you notice anything, any negative thoughts or feelings going on, I just invite you to let it go. Set it on the wings of a dove and watch it gently fly into the sunset. And I invite you to know that every time you become still in this stillness, in the silence of the mind, God is. And God has special gifts and special information to be shared with you. I invite you to breathe in this affirmation. I am open and receptive to my inner teacher. I am open and receptive to my inner teacher. My question for you and for all of us: how are we doing the dance of creation? How are we becoming the dance? We are the moon and the stars. How does that look? How do we express that oneness that we are? We are the lover and the beloved. How do we express that in our everyday life? We are one with everything. God lives inside of us. How do we express the joy of the dance? Will we choose to dance our bliss? Or to wallow in the experiences of life that may not go our way? After you leave today, how will you dance? I invite you in your mind's eye to visualize that experience. What does it look like to you and to me to dance the dance of creation, to dance the dance of love, to dance the dance of peace, to dance the dance of joy, to dance the dance of peace. I invite you now to come back to this time and place knowing that you are the dance. You are the lover and the beloved. I invite you to gently open your eyes when you feel ready. Move around a little bit so that you can come back into this time and place.